So today I'll be talking about 3 different integrations. We've got 3 product managers from Salesforce. I'll be talking about the visual experience that we bring into Outlook. Matthew will be talking about integrating with the Exchange server, and Laurent will be talking about integrating with SharePoint. Given most of you are Salesforce customers, you're very familiar with the Safe Harbor slide. This basically means that you should make your purchasing decisions and your implementation decisions based on currently available functionality, not on forward-looking statements or roadmap items. So as a Salesforce product manager, you may be wondering, why is it that I'm talking at a Microsoft conference? Salesforce and Microsoft signed a partnership last year in May 2014, so about a year ago, to bring the power of Office applications and the insights of Salesforce directly together. Thanks to you guys, with the success of your deployment, Salesforce has been rated the #1 CRM application in the market, and industry analysts like IDC believe so as well. Forbes magazine has rated Salesforce as the most innovative company for the past 4 years. And what you'll hear about today is an illustration of that. So we think that bringing Salesforce directly into Outlook or integrating it with SharePoint is one of those innovations that we're always looking forward to introducing in the product. Microsoft, on the other hand, is a household brand name that everybody loves and recognizes. It is believed that as many as 1.2 billion users are using Office applications. And Office is the umbrella that comprises Excel, Word, Outlook, PowerPoint, and other applications. So it is very natural that those 2 major players came together and decided to sign that partnership. This picture was taken last year in San Francisco near the Golden Gate Bridge when Satya Nadella, the CEO of Microsoft, met with my CEO, Mark Benioff, to cover how we could integrate those two suites of applications together. Here's a quote from Satya. "We're excited to partner with Salesforce. Working together, we'll deliver new solutions that connect the customer insights of Salesforce to the cloud productivity of Office 365. I've highlighted a few keywords in blue to illustrate how their visions are aligned. So my CEO says, together with Microsoft, we're building bridges that allow customers to be more productive. So it's really an example of bringing Salesforce into Microsoft products and not having to toggle between the 2 applications all the time. If you love working in Outlook, you can stay in Outlook and still benefit from all the insights that your organization has about your clients. So what I'll be talking about is Salesforce app for Outlook. Then I'll switch it over to Matthew to talk about Exchange Sync. Together, those 2 applications form what we call Email Connect. Since you're a Salesforce customer, I'm sure you're familiar with Salesforce for Outlook. Email Connect is the cloud alternative to Salesforce for Outlook. Salesforce for Outlook also had 2 components, the sync engine to synchronize your calendar and your contact information, as well as that visual experience being the side panel in Outlook. So Email Connect is the cloud alternative to this, and I'll explain what it means to be the cloud alternative. And then Laurent will be talking about Files Connect. All right, so let's get started. My name is Damien Joly. I'm a product manager at Salesforce. I've been there for just under 2 years. Before that, I was at Siebel Systems. You may recognize that name. It's another CRM vendor that was acquired by Oracle in 2006. So I've been in that space for quite a while, and the requirement to integrate CRM systems with productivity tools such as your email has always been around and will continue to be around for a long time. The Salesforce app for Outlook is to basically bring that Salesforce experience into Outlook. Emails are everywhere today, so it's critical that we deliver on that requirement. With Office 365, we're looking at our emails everywhere. It doesn't matter if our laptop is a Windows-based computer or if it's a Mac machine. There's also other operating systems out there. It doesn't matter which browser we're using. We could be using Chrome, Internet Explorer, Safari, and other browsers as well, Firefox being one of them. And we also look at our emails on mobile devices. It doesn't matter which mobile device we have. We have to be able to provide an experience on an iPhone, an Android device, or a Windows mobile device. So the idea behind the Salesforce app for Outlook is to leverage the new framework that Microsoft has made available through their Apps for Office. Apps for Office display in Office 365 on any operating system, on any browser, and on any mobile device. The Salesforce app for Outlook is there to bring you the Salesforce experience. It does not do any synchronization. You get to see Salesforce details in Outlook. You get to see contacts. You get to see Salesforce accounts. You get to see opportunities that contacts are playing a role in. You get to see cases, and so on. It's available in the Microsoft Office Store. You can also make it available in your on-prem app catalog. What it means is that as an administrator or as a sales user, you can get the app by navigating to the Microsoft Office Store. You don't have to install anything anymore, and that's the major architecture change. With Salesforce for Outlook, we were talking about an add-in that you had to install within Outlook. What it means is that you have to have installation rights on your computer. As new application versions come out, you have to upgrade to those new applications. So it means a lot of considerations for an IT organization. With this model, however, we're talking about a completely different way of manifesting Salesforce in Outlook. The promise of the Microsoft framework is that as we upgrade our application and bring new functionality, you do not have to upgrade anymore. That is done automatically, and that is not even required because an app for Office is the combination of two things: a manifest that resides on the Exchange server and a web page that resides on our server. This is how the Salesforce app for Outlook renders in the traditional Outlook application that you see there on the left-hand side, and in the browser version of Outlook, being Outlook web app. So you see that the Salesforce app for Outlook is exactly the same, no matter which client you're using. On the left-hand side, we're looking at Outlook 2013, and on the right, we're looking at OWA. The Outlook app on mobile devices is not quite compatible with that framework yet. But Microsoft is working on making it available as quickly as possible. When I was talking to product managers at Microsoft, they told me that it is their priority number one, so that you will also get that experience on your mobile device when you're using the mobile Outlook app, on your iPhone, on your Windows phone, or on an Android phone. So I've talked about this a little bit before. It's easier on IT because you're not in the business of deploying an add-in anymore. The Salesforce app for Outlook is the combination of that manifest file on the Exchange server that you get from the Office Store. And that manifest is what is pointing Outlook to retrieve content from our web page in Salesforce. So there's nothing to upgrade. It's also easier on end users because they can do that on their own as well if their administrator does not already do that. So let me show you how the manifest file looks like. I've highlighted a couple of words in orange to let you know what they mean. this is the entire manifest file. So that's an XML file, very short, and that's the only thing that resides on the Exchange server. So as you can see, it's extremely small. What it has is a description of the application. So a sentence describing the Salesforce app for Outlook. What it also points to is the app domain. So this is the page in Salesforce where the content of the application is hosted. If you want to write your own app for Office, you can write a manifest file and point that app domain to a page on-premise at your company or hosted on Azure. That page is basically hosting all the content that we provide in the Salesforce app for Outlook. So as we update the page, the manifest file stays the same. And that's the beauty of that architecture and for integrating Outlook with Salesforce. The capability means that we want to display the app when you're using your mailbox in Office 365. So you can imagine that other capabilities would be to manifest the application when you're looking at your calendar in Office 365. All the way at the bottom there, you've got an item type, and that's of type message. So when you're looking at a message in your mailbox, we're displaying the app, basically. The Exchange servers that we're supporting today are Office 365. So Office 365 means a lot of things. It could be Exchange Online, it could be Outlook Web App, and that's why I made the specification here. We also support dedicated Exchange Online servers. So those servers are hosted by Microsoft. And eventually we'll support on-prem Exchange servers as well. So I say eventually, but those types of servers already work today. There's really nothing for us to change. It's a matter of certifying that deployment. So we have to go through a cycle of quality testing. If you have an on-prem server and you want to give that app a try, you can come see me. We can work together to make it work. There's really no development needed to support that. It's only a matter of certification. I'll take your question at the very end if you don't mind. All right, so I'll give you a demo. The demo today is about getting the app from the Microsoft Office store and is about showing you that first-time usage where you authenticate yourself from Outlook into Salesforce. I was on a MSDN page here, and that page is actually pretty interesting and insightful. It describes what an app for Office is, so you're welcome to navigate to that page to learn more about it. There's a pretty concise drawing. It's indicating what an app for Office is. So we talked about this already. It's an app manifest on the Exchange server, and it's a web page using HTML and JavaScript in Salesforce, in my case. But if you want to write your own app, you would host it on your Exchange server or on Azure. All right, so I'm about to log into Outlook Web App. Okay, so this is the browser version of Outlook. If I step on any email, you'll see that a horizontal gray bar shows up where you get to see an immersive experience directly within the content of your email coming from third-party applications like Salesforce. There's also native Microsoft apps, such as action items. So when I click on this action item, and this is a Microsoft-provided feature, you see that Microsoft recognizes from the content of that email that potentially an action item will come out of that email. You can imagine that other applications can be included on that bar. And if you want even more, you can click on that link, and you get navigated to the Microsoft Office store. you can get LinkedIn, you can get Salesforce. There's 2 applications in the store for Salesforce. The first one is the app that you'll use to connect to your production Salesforce environment. And the second one right here is the one that you would use to connect to your sandbox environment. They do exactly the same thing. So as an end user, I would click on that app, and I would click on Add. It's going to ask me confirmation for adding that app. Another way to doing this is to use this cog-looking icon and managing your apps. This is where you'll see all the apps that are currently available for you to display when you're reading an email. You can include Bing Maps, for example. You can also turn off those applications if you don't want to use them. There's a plus icon here. This is another way to getting to the store. So if I click on there, I get back to the store. OK. I'll navigate back to my emails. So now you know how to get the app as an end user. Here is the experience that you'll go through when authenticating to Salesforce for the first time. So the app is asking you to log into Salesforce. It's opening a new browser instance. I'll log into my app, and it's giving me a long token. I'll copy this. I'll go back to the app, and I'll paste it in there. When I click on Next, what happens is that that user is now authenticated with Salesforce, and I get to see all the people included on the To line and on the CC line directly in the Salesforce app for Outlook, along with their title, along with the company that they work for. When I explore the app further, I have details about those accounts as well. I have opportunities that those contacts or leads or coworkers have been working on, as well as cases that were open in the past. I can also drill down to each one of those records and look at details. If a person included on the email was not recognized in Salesforce, you'll see that blue icon. You can create them as a contact. So the idea here is that you can remain productive in Outlook. You don't have to constantly toggle between Outlook and Salesforce. You get all the insights that yourself or your coworkers have described in Salesforce directly in Outlook by looking at that application. All right, and since you made the effort to come to this repeat session, I'll show you a little bonus feature. So I'll log in as an admin here. And I'll show you how to make that app available to all your users as an admin so that they don't have to do that themselves. So I'll use the app switcher here and navigate to the admin section. And under admin exchange, there is a section where you can manage your organization and the apps available in your organization. You can navigate to the store from there and get the Salesforce app. I'll select this one and I'll click on Edit. This is where you say, I want to make that app available to all my users and I want it to be enabled by default, or I want it to be available to my users, but I want it disabled by default so that I'll let sales users decide for themselves if they want it or not. So now you know how to get the application for yourself as an end user and also as an administrator to provide it to all your users. All right, I'll switch back to the slides. Over here. The last thing that I want to talk about today is where you can get more information. We've got a Salesforce success community dedicated to Salesforce for Outlook and Email Connect. Remember, Email Connect is the cloud alternative to Salesforce for Outlook. And we also have release notes that will walk you through the functionality of the Salesforce app for Outlook and how to make it available. So the Salesforce app for Outlook is really just about that Salesforce experience within Outlook. It does not do any synchronization. So if you want to get your Salesforce calendar items and your Salesforce contact details on your Exchange server and eventually in your Outlook application, Matthew will talk about it.
All right, am I on? Okay. Hello, everyone. Thanks for coming. Thanks, Damien. I am Matthew Barnhart, another product manager at Salesforce. I'm in the Salesforce for Microsoft Group. Oh, thank you. I'm in the Salesforce for Microsoft Group, and one of my focuses is Exchange integration. I've been at Salesforce approaching 2 years now, and my prior experience is over a decade in various SaaS applications spanning healthcare and federal and commercial, and now I'm just really pleased to be working on an integration between two world-class cloud products. Today, I want to tell you about Exchange Sync, which is, as Damien mentioned earlier, a sync engine. It is an important counterpart to the visual experience that Damien just described, whereas Salesforce app for Outlook was the experience where you can really interact with the data live within your Outlook view. Exchange Sync is a more behind-the-scenes feature that keeps contact lists and calendar items in sync with each other between what a sales rep might have in Salesforce and what they have in Exchange. Put together, we call these two things the Exchange Sync engine plus the app for Outlook visual experience. Together, we call them Email Connect, and that constitutes our Exchange integration. So let's just start with a quick demo to see what that looks like. For an end user, it's really about items just being created on one side and magically appearing on another side. So that's number 2. Here is my iPad with the calendar for today, and if I'm a sales rep, that is way too empty, so we have to do something about that. Let us now go to Outlook. Pardon me, Salesforce. So here I am logged into my calendar, also empty, but here's where I'm actually going to create an event. I might be creating a meeting for myself, or, and this is a really important workflow, there might be someone at my company whose job it is to work the phone, find the hot leads, and then start assigning actual face-to-face visits to sales reps. So let us do that. Let's say it's time for a dinner meeting. Spell that right. Dinner with XYZ company. We're going to save that. And let's go back to the iPad and wait for the item to appear. Someone let me know when it does, because I'm just going to start talking about, okay, this is how it's beneficial to the end user. That has not shown up yet. Okay, good. Oh, it did. All right, that was fast. Good. I knew it was going to do that. I knew it was going to do that. I didn't even get into my stalling tactics yet. It's already there. So let's go back. Exchange Sync extends Salesforce's reach, and this is why it's good to the organization as a whole. I mean, we just saw why it's good to the end user. Hey, my calendar's in sync. Doesn't matter what device I like to carry with me. I don't have to be logged into Salesforce in a web browser to know what I'm doing next or to know how to look up that phone number. So that's really how it extends Salesforce's reach. The end users can be interacting with Salesforce from a variety of devices and a variety of contexts. From an IT perspective, it's exciting that it's always working. It's a server-to-server sync, so it's always working in the background. The sync engine does not care anything about my laptop or my mobile device, my tablet. And so that actually means that it's compatible from an end user's perspective with any device they're carrying with them, as long as that is an Exchange connected device. But that's pretty much every device, isn't it? So that's not even a problem. And this is easier on IT than any more old-fashioned kind of installed solution, because not only is there nothing to install on those end devices, there's nothing to install in Exchange. It's, again, some lightweight configuration. Even on Salesforce, nothing to install, because this sync engine just comes with the whole package. It's in Salesforce Sales Cloud. It's highly available. It's always automatically updated. Everything that you would come to expect from a cloud-based solution. To review that in visual form, Exchange in the middle. This can be online via Exchange 365, or it can be on-prem. All your end users have all their favorite OSs and devices and clients at the bottom. All those things are already talking to Exchange. But then you've got Salesforce with all this great CRM data up top. How are we going to get it into all those endpoints? We're not going to draw an arrow from Salesforce to each one of those endpoints, because that would mean we have to write a whole bunch of different client applications. You have to install them and upgrade them and a whole bunch of painful actions like that. So instead, it is the server-to-server sync. So now let's talk about how to actually do this. And we're going to get into using PowerShell to make it happen. First, the supported Exchange servers, Office 365, Enterprise Edition or above, and the on-prem Exchange servers are 2010 and 2013. All right, the setup steps. So one day, I hope your friendly Salesforce admin will come knocking at your door and say, my sales reps need this. They need to have this data mobilized, and it needs to be with them on the go. Please help me with setting up the Exchange side. I'm going to show you that that's easy. The game plan is just 3 steps. One is, on Exchange, you want to create a service account mailbox with impersonation privileges. So that's really just a regular user mailbox that we add some privileges to, and that's what I'm going to show you. Once you do that, we recommend that you give it a quick test with Remote Connectivity Analyzer. It's a great online Microsoft tool. You may all know it well already. And last, once you've done that, you can go back to the Salesforce admin and say, hey, I just need to save securely these service account credentials in Salesforce. And that actually allows the sync engine in Salesforce to talk to Exchange and do all the various and read writes on behalf of all the users who are being synchronized. Okay, we're just about at the PowerShell time. These are the commandlets to run. There's only 3 of them. Actually, if you're doing it for on-prem Exchange, there are 4. This is how it looks for Office 365. It's practically the same in both flavors. I'll explain what those mean in a moment. First, let's actually do it live. So we are on. Okay, looking good. So in PowerShell here, I should already be connected to my Office 365 instance. And one thing I want to show you is that ahead of time, I created the mailbox, but I haven't done anything special to it. I gave it this arbitrary name here, SF Service Account for Salesforce Service Account. That's just a regular mailbox right now. But now let's make it special. I have these commands in the command buffer, so I don't have to type. Okay, we are going to enable organization customization. That's something that the documentation tells you to do for Office 365. You'll probably get this angry-looking message that really already says you're already enabled. Just run it anyway. It doesn't hurt. So now let's do a command that really matters more, and that is creating new management scope. This is because that service account, you might not want it to impersonate everyone in your organization. Then after that, we're going to actually assign that to a role. Let's make that happen. Okay, now back to explaining what those meant. I went through it fast. All right, so let's start with the second one there, new management scope. I gave it an arbitrary name, SF Scope for Salesforce Scope. Call it whatever you want. And the second argument on that command is the recipient restriction filter. I put in alias equals Matthew.Barnhart because let's say I'm doing a test. I'm testing it for exactly one user. So this service account that I just set up is going to work with one and only one user. You will probably, after testing it, put in something like department equals sales or organizational unit equals XYZ. You choose it. You choose. That's where you can get creative and choose the right filter. The next command down is the one where we actually make that service account mailbox special. Again, arbitrary name. I called it Salesforce role assignment. The parameter application impersonation is the very important one that says this service account is going to be able to do whatever the end users could do, the various reads and writes. Next argument is the user. Yep, that service account that I showed you before, that email address, that's the one we're giving it to. And lastly, who does that service account get to impersonate? Well, it's whoever was in the Salesforce scope that we just defined in the prior command. So it really just comes down to two commands to run here. Okay, and I said the next good thing to do is to give that a quick test before you save it in Salesforce. So let us go back. And part of the reason I did the explanation after running the commands, you may know this about using Exchange, especially via PowerShell, is that the commands don't actually take immediately. There's some sort of replication or propagation going on. I see that it usually need to give it at least 2 minutes. It's not a bad idea to go get your cup of coffee and then come back and do this test, because by then everything should be working fine. So when you go to testconnectivity.microsoft.com, doesn't matter whether you're using Office 365 or Exchange Server, just take the first tab, Exchange Server, and we're going to do Service Account Access and Next. And once again, I pre-filled some fields here. Our objective here is make sure Auto-Discover is working the way it ought to, and that service account can impersonate the one user in the scope. And you don't have to do this test for every user who's being impersonated. Do it for one, and then you can be pretty confident it must be working for all of them. So in my case, Matthew.Barnhart was the user that we wanted to make sure could be impersonated. This is someone who we want to do syncing. The service account is the service account who we hope can do the impersonation. You will know the password for that account because you created it. We'll leave use Auto-Discover selected. Test predefined folder. By default, that will be inbox. I would say just change it to calendar or contacts because either of those things is what's being actually synchronized by Exchange Sync. I'll leave it on calendar. We are using Exchange impersonation. Make sure you tick that box there and put the impersonated user again. Don't put the service account in there again. That's an easy mistake to make. Matthew.Barnhart. Again, it's the end user. Click your I understand there. This is the part where you prove you are not a robot. I may be a robot. Okay, let's try that again. Okay, GS4PKL. Oh, I do have an extra one in there. Why is my click is not working well? Okay, let me change to the trackpad. G. It's not reacting to the keyboard right now. Maybe I need to reload this page. Hold on. Previous. Next. All right, try that one more time. Okay. VKYLPJ. Not a robot. Okay, here we go. Perform the test. Now, this will typically take between 3 and 30 seconds. It can depend on the particulars of your Exchange setup. Like I said, it's doing two things. It's trying a number of auto-discover methods, trying to make sure that your Exchange server is configured to allow at least one of them to work. That's all you need. And to make sure that that user can in fact be impersonated by the service account. This is a good result. Connectivity test successful with warnings. The warnings are just, hey, some of the auto-discover methods didn't work. At least one of them did. If you expand this whole thing in interesting details down at the bottom, all the stuff at the top is about auto-discover. But down at the bottom, look at this. A new mail item got created, and then that mail item got deleted. So it's kind of a test that leaves no trace behind in the user that was being tested. But since the service account was able to do that, we know we're good. So now we're in the home stretch. Next part is easy. Once you've got that set up, you're going to go back to your Salesforce admin and say, hey, I've got Exchange set up, so let's just finish configuring our Email Connect Exchange sync. This is assuming you don't feel like emailing the password to your Salesforce admin, which is not a recommended practice. So instead, they're going to take you here and say, please type it in. And when you get here for the first time, these two fields are probably blank if you're doing it for the first time for your Exchange admin. So the service account we just set up for them. Oh, the mouse has gone bad again. Let me refresh the page. Okay, you can do it. There we go. The name of the service account we just created was SF Service Account. Password. Save it. And this test runs faster than the remote connectivity analyzer test. There we are. There we are. Your service account credentials have been saved. So at this point, your work is done. All the Salesforce admin has to do is a little more clicking and point and click in here to set up exactly which users they want to sync. They can choose a subset of the users you just enabled, and they get to choose which sync directions, contacts, and or calendar and filters. A bunch of stuff you don't need to worry about. The rest is for the Salesforce admin. So that was it. Exchange Sync is set up. Just two commandlets that really mattered. All right, so I'm going to wrap it up now. We've got some more information here. All that is documented. It's only a couple pages of documentation, really. It's not hard. We have a couple videos, though, showing you a lot of the same stuff. You might want to look at the second from the bottom there, the setup video for the Office 365 admin GUI, because all that stuff I did in PowerShell, I can also set this up just in the admin part of Office 365 with the following difference. You can't limit the scope of how many users can be impersonated by that service account. It's sort of all or nothing, which can be okay because that doesn't mean all the users will automatically start syncing. Again, it's still the Salesforce admin who chooses the subset of Salesforce users who will really sync. So if you do it that Office 365 admin GUI way, you just are enabling the possibility that all the users at your company could sync. So now, what have we done? We've looked so far at Salesforce App for Outlook, the visual experience. We've looked at the Sync engine, which does lots of good stuff in the background. Those two together, again, our Email Connect, our Exchange integration solution. But there's so much more to our relationship with Microsoft than just Exchange. What about documents? What about things like SharePoint and OneDrive? For that, there's no better person to talk to than my colleague, Laurent. Thank you.
All right. Hello, everyone. It's Wednesday. Like Bon Jovi would say, we are halfway there, so bear with me. I'm Laurent Kubaski. I'm the product manager for Files Connect, and as you can hear, I'm French, coming directly from Paris, Texas. All right. Thank you. Raise your hand if you were at this exact same session yesterday. Great. I can use the exact same jokes. That's perfect. So I've been with Salesforce for 2 years and a half, and before this, I was working in a French startup called Entropysoft, and we were building connectors for content management systems, like SharePoint, EMC Documentum, IBM FileNet, OpenText LiveLink, and we were selling these connectors to search engines. In fact, we were Google partners for the Google Search appliance, and we were Microsoft partners for Microsoft Fast. And one weekend, I was bored, so I used our SharePoint connector to build a Salesforce SharePoint integration. And I showed this to Salesforce, and they said, hey, That's nice. How much is it? And I said, you mean how much is the SharePoint connector? No, they said, how much is your company? So we were acquired like 2 years ago and to build an official SharePoint integration. And the reason I'm here today is to tell you about this product, which is called Files Connect. And first, I'm going to stretch my legs a little bit. I want to make sure that you are not on Facebook or Tinder in the back. So what problem are we trying to solve? Hey, she's good looking. So Salesforce is the leading CRM application on the market today. And SharePoint, it's the leading content management system on the market today. And here is the challenge. If you use Salesforce and SharePoint, there is no built-in solution to integrate these two platforms together. So what do people do? Well, they copy and paste SharePoint document links in Salesforce. Does this sound familiar to you? Or they download SharePoint documents and re-upload them in Salesforce. And now I'm going to tell you why, like Michael Jackson would say, that's bad. First, copy and pasting HTTP links, it's bad because if you rename your document in SharePoint, your link breaks. Then HTTP links are read-only, so you cannot update your SharePoint document from Salesforce, you have no previews, you don't have access to SharePoint metadata, and so on. But now downloading and re-uploading documents in Salesforce, it's even worse, because you now have two documents, and you just don't know which one is the latest one. Also, you break the SharePoint permission model when you do that. It's because the Salesforce permission model is different from the SharePoint permission model. So what do? Are we doomed? Is there a light at the end of the tunnel? Well, I don't know if there is a light, but I know that there is Files Connect. OK. Right, so Files Connect, it's external files in the flow of business. It means making SharePoint document an integral part of the Salesforce business process. The long-term vision, basically, is to bring SharePoint in Salesforce, allowing you to access your SharePoint documents from Salesforce in read and write mode. So our long-term vision is also to allow you to create SharePoint documents directly from Salesforce. And today, that's what you get when you use Files Connect. First, single point of access. Let's say that you have multiple SharePoint servers. You can access all your documents from Salesforce. What does accessing exactly mean? It means browsing your site collections, your site, your document libraries. You can navigate in the folder hierarchy from Salesforce. It also means searching in SharePoint from Salesforce. We don't index documents. We send your search request to the SharePoint search engine. And if you have multiple SharePoint servers, we have what we call federated search. We send the search query across all your SharePoint servers, and we display a page with all the results. And let's say that you have found a document that you love. You can publish it in Salesforce as a file reference. And a file reference, it's a bit like Canada Dry. It looks like a copy of your SharePoint document. It tastes like a copy of your SharePoint document, but it's not. Basically, it's an empty file because instead of storing the document content, we store the SharePoint document ID. So if you rename your document in SharePoint, the file reference in Salesforce will still work, and so on. If you want to interact with the file, basically, Files Connect is going to use the ID to connect to SharePoint and do whatever you want with your SharePoint document. Also, at Salesforce, we are API first. All these features are in the Salesforce public API. You can build custom apps on top of it. In fact, on the right side of the screen, you have the Salesforce mobile app that we call Salesforce One. It's using the Files Connect API, public API, which is why today you can access all your SharePoint documents on the go from your mobile device. Yes, even your SharePoint on-premises documents. Speaking of this, let's have a look at the architecture. Thanks. OK, and in case you are wondering, yes, it's a wall on fire, also known as a firewall. By the way, that's the list of the systems we support today. So we integrate with SharePoint Online, OneDrive for Business. Well, I'm not exactly supposed to talk about this one because it's a Microsoft conference, but we also integrate with Google Drive. And on premises, SharePoint 2010 and SharePoint 2013. Let's do a quick poll. Who's on SharePoint Online or OneDrive for Business in the cloud? Okay. Who's using SharePoint on premises? Wow, lots of people. All right, now here is the trick. From this room, can you access your SharePoint on premises documents right now? Raise your hand if you can do that. All right. How do we? So the reason it's so difficult is because you have this firewall. So most of the time you need to be VPN connected to do this. It's not always possible. So to integrate with SharePoint on premises, we have the secure agent. It's a piece of software. It's an OSGI container for the Java geeks in this room. It's an OSGI container that you can deploy in your intranet, and it's doing three things. First, it connects to Salesforce. Then it connects to SharePoint using the CSOM API. And then it encrypts all the data. And if you want to take a picture of me for your Facebook page, all right. So that's to integrate with SharePoint on premises. For SharePoint Online, it's way more easy. SharePoint is in the cloud. Salesforce is in the cloud. Everyone is in the cloud. We'll still use the CSOM API, and we authenticate using OAuth. So in both scenarios, we use the CSOM API, and there is no need to install any plugin in SharePoint because the CSOM API, it's a public API. All right, let's see how to use this from an end user point of view. Standard use case, a Salesforce opportunity. I want to attach a SharePoint document with this opportunity. By the way, that's the chatter feed that you see there. And chatter, as you know, it's like a Yammer for Salesforce. When I talk about Yammer, I say that it's chatter for SharePoint. And by the way, if people ask you what's the best enterprise social network, is it chatter or is it Yammer? I always say that chatter, it's always in context of your business objects. So if you want to introduce chatter in your company, chatter alone, it's going to be difficult because people will not easily switch from email to chatter. But if the chatter feed is in the context of a record, an account, an opportunity, a business record, people will more easily use it because it's instantly available while they are working. They don't need to switch to another application. That's why I think chatter is more powerful, but you know, that's just me. All right, so this will be familiar to you. File, select a file from Salesforce. I hope that you can see the screen. And that's new. On the left side of the screen, that's the Files Connect integration. You can now select a file. And I guess I need to do this way too. That's there on the left. You can now select a file from an external system. I'm going to use SharePoint Online. I click on SharePoint Online, and I will now browse SharePoint Online in real time. I'm connected to a site. This one is a document library, and I have access to all my folders. So I'm really browsing SharePoint Online in real time. These documents are not stored in Salesforce. They are stored in SharePoint Online. I will click on Attach, and that's going to create a file reference. Remember, looks like a copy of your SharePoint document. It's not. It behaves like any chatter file. I hope you are familiar with chatter or Salesforce files. It behaves like a chatter file. You can share it with users, records, and groups. We don't duplicate the content. We store the SharePoint document ID. Each time you interact with your document, Files Connect is going to connect to SharePoint on your behalf, and is going to download the file, update the file, and so on. By the way, I hope you know this little tip, but each time you attach a file to your feed, it will show up in the Notes and Attachments section. Don't know if you are familiar with this feature, but now all your file references are available in the Notes and Attachments section. And I know what you are thinking, sir. Do I need to attach all my files one by one? I have lots of SharePoint documents that I want to link to a Salesforce record. You don't need to do this. You can also search in SharePoint, so you can link some SharePoint documents based on metadata. For example, here is a SharePoint account. It's called Acme, and I have a custom field called color with 3 values, blue, white, and red, which are the colors of the French flag or from the US flag. You choose. You, sir, pick any color of your choice. Which color do you want? Which one? Blue. Another one. Any color you want. Anyone? Red. Red? Okay, blue. Perfect. Okay, he said red. I'm going to choose red, and when I hit save, Files Connect is going to connect to SharePoint, retrieve all the SharePoint documents that are red, because I created a custom column in SharePoint, and here is the list. Okay? Basically, I'm extracting all the SharePoint documents that have the same color than the account. Again, from red to white, when I hit save, Files Connect connects to SharePoint, queries SharePoint, and that's it. So you get the idea. So that's using Files Connect search. You remember federated search? Searching across all your SharePoint servers. We can do that. I'm going to search for specifications. I'm using the Salesforce global search. I search for specifications, and it's searching across all my connected systems. So from the Salesforce global search result page, I have results coming from SharePoint Online, OneDrive, and so on. So I can search across all my SharePoint servers from Salesforce. So that's what accessing documents from Salesforce means. Browsing, searching, and you can write custom Apex code to build the integrations that you want. All right. I know you want to know how you can do this yourself. Lucky you. That's the next slide. Let's do it. Let's connect to SharePoint Online together. Like the Jackson 5 would say, it's as easy as 1, 2, 3. Except that it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But I couldn't find any song like that. So back in Salesforce, but this time we are going to switch on the setup tree. And so we connect to SharePoint Online, so we need to create what's known as a OAuth provider. The OAuth provider is the part that's going to do the OAuth dance for us. Do you know the OAuth dance? That's the best I can do. All right, let me explain. You are in Salesforce, and when you authenticate using OAuth, the user is redirected to SharePoint Online to authenticate, and then he's going to go back to Salesforce. And to go back to Salesforce, you need a return URL, because SharePoint Online needs to know where to take you back after you are authenticated. So you create an OAuth provider, and I'm going to enter any value. What's your name, sir? Colin. Okay, you are going to be the OAuth provider. I hope you are proud about this. Consumer key. I don't have these values now, so I'm just going to enter fake values. HTTPS foo. All right, and I just hit save because what I need is this, a callback URL. That's all I need. Then I'm going to inject this value in SharePoint Online, in Office 365. Let's now switch to Office 365, where we are going to create an app. It's called like this. It's an app. And Office 365, which is very nice, will generate a client ID and client secret for me. So I click on Generate. That's my client client ID, generate for the client secret, title, okay, Colin again. It's your day, Colin. Did I say that this session was recorded? You are going to be world famous. Redirect URL, that's the part where I copy-paste the value from Salesforce. So copy and paste, and now SharePoint Online knows where to bring me back. Okay, next step is to grant permissions to this app. That's this screen. And Microsoft style, you need to copy and paste an XML snippet to grant access to Files Connect. So the code snippet is there. It's fully documented on the Salesforce website. It looks like this. And this means give read access to Files Connect to all my SharePoint tenants. And you can choose which type of access you want to grant. I hit create. And now that's it. That's all I need to do on the SharePoint Online side. Back in Salesforce for the last step, which is to create an external data source. That's well, here you have the list of systems I'm already connected to. I'm going to create a new one. Guess how I'm going to call it? Yes, it's your day, Colin. I choose SharePoint Online, and then the only parameter I need to enter is the site or site collection URL, which in my case, it's entropysoft.sharepoint.com. And now you know why our test server is named entropysoft. All right. Then I link the external data source to an OAuth provider called Colin. I hit save. And believe it or not, if I now go back to my opportunity, again on my feed, file, select a file from Salesforce, and we have Colin available. We have a connection called Colin. It's there on the top. And you can name it like you want. You can name it marketing, if it's for marketing documents, technical, if it's for technical documents, and you can decide who can access this. So you can grant access to technical documents to technical people. You can grant access to marketing documents to marketing people. All right, so that's how you connect to SharePoint Online. So I told you it was as easy as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If you want more information, in fact, I don't know what I'm saying if. Since you want more information, we have the Salesforce Success community. It's where you can access all the information about the product. So you click there, you log in with your Salesforce account, and there is a dedicated Shader Files Connect group where I will personally answer all your questions. Also, the online help.salesforce.com, search for Files Connect for all the setup instructions. So, let's recap. So Files Connect, external files in the flow of business. You can access, search all your SharePoint documents from Salesforce. That was Files Connect. So I hope that thanks to me and my colleagues, you now have a better understanding of some of the products that are behind the Microsoft partnership. And also better understand how these products can help you increase your productivity. And when you call your wife or husband tonight, and when he or she asks you, so what did you learn during this Salesforce session? There is only one thing that you need to say. Well, darling, that's easy. The world #1 CRM plus the world #1 productivity suite equals customer success. So that's where you are supposed to go crazy, yeah. Learn more. Yeah, you want to learn more? Come see us at booth 1, 2, 4. You can see again products demos, and we have the best coffee in the expo. If you don't find the Salesforce booth, just ask where is the best coffee. I'm not joking. When I'm talking with the people on the expo hall, they say, you have the best coffee, my friends. So this was the repeat session. So it's done. No more sessions, no more jokes. And well, that's it. That's it. In terms, I guess on the Ignite website, you can find this PowerPoint presentation. Again, success.salesforce.com for dedicated shelter groups for all these products. And now, well, we have 13 minutes left. That's the Q&A session. And for all questions concerning Fast Connect, you will get this Eiffel Tower keyring as a souvenir. So choose your questions wisely.
If you have any questions, would you please come up to a microphone? This is being recorded, so we got to make sure.
Hi, I have a question about the color, that red, white, and blue. I assume that was a metadata property.
Exactly.
In SharePoint.
Yes.
If I change that metadata property in SharePoint, what happens to that property in Salesforce?
So we use the, and by the way, you won your the first Eiffel Tower, so you have chosen wisely. So if you change your custom property in SharePoint, we use the SharePoint search engine behind the hood. So you just need for SharePoint to re-index your documents, and then it will be immediately available in Salesforce. For all search things, we really send the search query to SharePoint and ask him, OK, return all the documents that are named like this. So basically, if you don't get your search, you can do the test on the SharePoint search UI. If you see what you want in the SharePoint search UI, search box, you will see it in Salesforce too.
All right. So, it's your turn.
Terrific. So it sounds like all of this that you just demoed is already available to us to be able to use in O365 from Ignite on forward?
That's correct.
Okay.
The two elements of Email Connect are currently beta, which means high quality, but maybe doesn't have every feature still on our roadmap that we want to get to, but it's there.
Okay. So door number 2 is, one of the things that we want to do is be able to bring in Salesforce data into like contact lists and things like that. So flipping the switch. So you guys are having it go into the documents, go into a document library in Salesforce. Does this connector also allow us to do that? Actually drag, we want to have all the contacts from a client, for instance, drawn into a project site.
So into what sort of project site? I didn't follow that.
So in O365 into like a contact list on the site itself.
I'm not quite seeing what that. Do you have a thought, Damien?
Yeah, so if you want to bring Salesforce content into your Azure hosted or on-prem site, that would not basically answer your question here. Those integrations would not be capable to handle that requirement.
Okay.
If you want to bring Salesforce data into your website, you would have to look at leveraging the Salesforce API and build that logic yourself.
Okay. Terrific. Thank you.
For Files Connect, you said there, absolutely, there is it on the roadmap to be able to upload documents to SharePoint, and when's that coming?
Exactly. So as you remember, that's the long-term vision, read-write access for SharePoint. As I am speaking, the Files Connect developers are implementing document creation at the API level. So using the Files Connect API, you'll be able to upload documents in SharePoint. Just, you will not need to know the SharePoint API, you will interact with the Salesforce API. So we are building this as part of the Winter 16 release at the API level, and then we will expose it at the UI level.
Okay. And one more question on the...
That's only one Eiffel Tower, though. It's not one per question.
I'll remember. On the metadata and the sites you showed. So you talked about the metadata that's tied to that specific list in SharePoint, I assume. Is that correct? Like the red, blue, is that a list specific?
Yes, in this case, I created this column on a site.
On a site, okay. And when you navigate and find, you showed how you connect to a site collection.
Yes.
Can you go at a higher level and let the user navigate?
You can go to what's known as the root site collection.
Okay.
If you go there, you will have access to all the sub-site collections, assuming the currently logged in user, of course, is allowed to do this. Okay. Basically, we will expose sub-site collections and sub-sites as subfolders in the UI, so you can navigate. Okay. Again, really, it's for demos, browsing is very cool, very nice, but search is what I recommend using if you want to publish your documents. So for example, when I am on SharePoint Online, this search box right there can be used. You see this search box in the middle of the screen will search in the external data source you are currently logged in. Okay. So if you know the document name, only part of it, you search there. For example, when I did the federated search, I searched across all my SharePoint servers, but if I know that it's there, I can just search for specifications.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
I have 3 more Eiffel Towers.
Two questions. So first, will this index and surface encrypted files that live in SharePoint?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So that's
basically, here, if you need to remember one thing, is that we display exactly what the SharePoint search engine is sending us back. Okay, there is no magic going on. If you use this exact search query in SharePoint, you will see the exact same result.
Got it. Okay. And how about from a workflow perspective? Can you build Salesforce workflows that can participate in finding documents that live in SharePoint?
You could do that, but it will be custom coding on top of our API.
So is that a force.com?
Yes,
wrapper?
It's an Apex code.
Okay.
Apex code, for example, the part where I link SharePoint document to an account using the color, it's 10 lines of Apex code that I wrote.
Okay. And for the heck of it, a third question on licensing.
Licensing.
Does my entire organization have to participate in a SharePoint license for them to be in compliance with this capability?
It's the very first time someone is asking me, how much is it?
Well, I'm in sales, so.
Okay, I'm not going to bring up this question myself. Hey, we need to eat, right? Okay, so how much is it? Today, the Files Connect costs depend on what you want to connect to. For SharePoint on premises, it's an add-on, it's a paid add-on. So contact your sales rep to know the price. So first of all, of course, you need to buy the SharePoint licenses, okay? We assume that you have the needed SharePoint licenses. Now, to use Files Connect, to access on SharePoint on premises, it's a paid add-on. To access cloud data sources, SharePoint Online, OneDrive for Business, Google Drive, and in the future we'll support Box, Dropbox, and so on. That's free. When I mean free, it means it's included in the price of the Salesforce licenses you already have, starting from Chatter Plus and above. So today, I mean, you can connect to your Salesforce org from this room if you want. You go to the setup tree, you have the Files Connect node in the setup tree today, and you can connect your org to SharePoint Online today. It's available for free if you use at least Chatter Plus. Editions, it's Enterprise Edition and above. So that's the good news. That's the good news.
Do you have an API for SQL Server?
Do we have an API for SQL Server? No, because Files Connect, it's for unstructured data, so we only support content management systems. So SQL Server is the database behind some of the SharePoint servers, but we don't directly access the database. We are one layer above.
Okay. Yeah.
If you want to access SQL Server, there is also a product that has a similar name. It's called Lightning Connect. You can blame Salesforce marketing for coming up with similar names. You cannot believe how often people come and talk to me about Lightning Connect when they mean Files Connect. So Files Connect is to access documents, and Lightning Connect is to access structured data in databases using OData data as the protocol. So I'm pretty sure that SQL Server is OData data compliant. So that's a different product that you will need to use.
Okay, sounds like it's not in the roadmap.
Files Connect, no. It's accessing databases. It's not on our roadmap. We target documents.
Okay, thank you.
Still, we can consider that it's a Files Connect question, so you get the Eiffel Tower. Only one left.
Can you describe the security trimming and how it works between Salesforce and SharePoint?
So that's the last one for you. Files Connect always accesses SharePoint or always accesses external systems on behalf of someone. So when I'm browsing SharePoint or when I'm searching in SharePoint from Salesforce, I can only see my own documents. Now here is the trick, because if you start publishing file references in Salesforce, then it becomes a bit different. So that's a file reference right there. Let me dismiss this. Okay. So that's a file reference. Let me zoom out so that it's full screen. Okay, so that's a file reference on my screen. And you can share it with users, chatter groups, records. You can run reports on it. Soon it will be read-write, so you'll be able to update this file reference. If you share this with a feed, okay, everyone that can access the feed will be able to reach this page. So, but from there, they'll not be able to download the document or open the document if you don't have access to the file in SharePoint. As I was saying, every time we always connect to SharePoint to interact with the document. And while we are doing this, we authenticate as the user. So that's where we check that the user is allowed to do what he wants to do.
I have a question related to that. We log in to Salesforce using Microsoft Azure AD. Does that automatically create a connection since you're logging in with a Microsoft Azure AD account?
No. Which SharePoint server do you use? On premises?
Online.
Online, okay. So today we have this exact same question to Microsoft. That's a nice thing with this partnership. We asked them, what's your recommended approach to authenticate against SharePoint Online? And they told us OAuth is the way to go. So, because OAuth sits on top of all the authentication mechanisms. So if you use single sign-on using Okta or Ping Identity or any of those, OAuth sits on top. So it means that we support all the SharePoint Online authentication mechanism. The caveat, though, that's an English word, right?
Yeah.
But no, you say the caveat is that you still need to re-authenticate the first time. So as Damien showed you, it's the same concept. The first time that you use the Outlook plugin, you need to do the OAuth dance. You need to authenticate. It's the same thing for Files Connect. The first time you want to access SharePoint Online, you do the OAuth dance, and then it's done. We store the OAuth token, and you don't need to re-authenticate. So basically, you will be redirected to SharePoint Online, you authenticate, and then you are back in Salesforce.
Okay, but what if you log in to Salesforce using Microsoft AD credentials?
Yes, still you will not be authenticated automatically to SharePoint via Files Connect.
Okay.
You will need to do it at least once, the first time.
Thank you.
Wish I had more Eiffel Towers.
I came up just for the Eiffel Tower, right?
Yeah, I know that. I'm sorry, man.
Are you setting up the OAuth for every user, or are you saying you set it up once And then that can then be used across the board for all the users in both Salesforce as well as SharePoint.
You can choose. We have 2 ways to do this. The recommended way is that, well, each user wants to access his own files, right? So that's the most common use case. So in this case, we call this per user authentication. Each user needs to do the flow. We also have what we call name principal authentication, where the admin basically will share his credentials with everyone. So the admin sets up the connections, and then each user will not need to authenticate, but will access the files linked to the account.
But it's a common credential.
Yes, it's a common credentials approach. That's 95% of our customers use the per user approach, unless you have some kind of public SharePoint site, so to speak, with some documents that everyone is allowed to access. So per user is really the way to go. Each user will authenticate using his own credentials. And then we'll see his own files while browsing or searching.
Users have to do that.
Yes, the auth flow, yeah, the first time. First time they use Files Connect. All right.
Does Salesforce plan to make an upgrade to support bidirectional communications between SharePoint and Salesforce?
You mean two-way sync?
Yeah.
That's on our long-term roadmap, and let me tell you the use case. Unfortunately, on this file reference details page, you see this follow icon. It's on the top right. We should have removed this because it's a bit confusing. When you click on the follow icon, basically, normally, when you click on the follow icon in SharePoint, it means I want to be notified when the files is modified. So that's what it means. On a file reference page, when you click on follow, you will actually only receive notification when the reference title is modified, because we do not know when the file in SharePoint is modified. So on our long-term roadmap, we want to listen to SharePoint events, because when you modify a file in SharePoint, an event is sent, and you can listen to events from the API. The goal is to be able to follow a file reference and be notified in Salesforce when your SharePoint document is modified. That's Files Connect will use the SharePoint API to do this, but in the UI, you will receive a chatter notification telling you, hey, your SharePoint document has been modified. That's really our long-term goal. But it's very complex.
Actually, I do have I'm making a proof of concept between SharePoint and Salesforce, providing the bidirectional process.
Uh-huh.
So that's the reason why I'm trying to ask you.
So that's only an example. Also, what we have in mind, but it's really two-way sync between Salesforce document and SharePoint. It's a two-way sync, but we'll see this later on. The problem with two-way sync is that you duplicate the information in SharePoint, which is what we want to avoid doing. We don't want to duplicate content in Salesforce, because if the sync engine stops, you're screwed.
Yeah, probably.
And thanks, everyone. I think we need to let the next group set up. Maybe Laurent will be able to talk to you after, but it looks like I need to let the next people up onto the stage. Thanks very much.